All right, sounds good. So we're a little new to YouTube Live, so scratch the last video because there was no audio. So the purpose of what we're talking about today is payments and being able to handle payments. And one of the challenges we have if we open up an existing payment is that we can see this payment. There's a $250,000 payment amount. It's closed because there's no balance on the payment. And yes, payments can have a balance because you may receive that payment but not apply it to everything. Okay. So the challenge is when we look at this application history, we can see that this particular payment was applied to all of these different invoices. So this is good. All this adds up to $250,000. It's fully applied, the $250,000, and that's why it's closed. But one of the challenges we have in Acumatica is, if we take a look at another payment here, let me find something that's a little simpler. So here's another payment. It's only $2,100, and it's got one single invoice. And the layout of this payment screen is, documents to apply. So that's future tense. A lot of times when customers are getting to know the system, they get a little confused by this because they'll create a payment, they'll apply it here in this screen, and then they'll release the payment, and this will all disappear and go blank, and they'll wonder what happened to it. And essentially, this gets picked up and moved over to here. But the use case, the challenge we have is Acumatica has payment processors. And these payment processors conventionally do credit card processing. But in recent years, they are doing ACHs also, which is great, right? The ability to do an ACH, you have the banking information of the customer, you can draft or draw the account for those funds. The challenge is that it looks very much like a credit card transaction. And that's not the true challenge, but essentially, when you write up this payment and you select capture, right, the $2,100 will go through. You'll have the credit card CC processing tab here, and you'll see accepted or approved. And you'll also see a status right here that says it's, again, approved. But let's say there's an issue with that payment. And with ACHs, the challenge with these merchant processors is you don't know about it right away. You get approval, and then maybe a day, maybe a few days, maybe up to 10 days later, there could be a kickback on that payment. And the way you discover this, you don't discover it right away because you make the payment, it's approved, Acumatica releases the payment. It also offsets the invoice amount. So your AR aging looks great. You have all your invoices paid, you're moving on to the next month, and everything's fine. And you don't notice this until you start to do your bank rec. Now, in Acumatica, your bank rec can be a few different ways. You could do it the conventional way where you download your bank statement, PDF, and then you go right to reconciliation and you're going through it. But the end all of it is that if you have a failed ACH or if you have an ACH that gets kicked back, what you get there is a transaction, a disbursement. So normally your ACH or credit card, it's all about receipts, right? You're getting settlements every day. They come in as a receipt. And if this was a single payment of $2,100, you'd see that. You'd see one single settlement, $2,100, assuming it was a slow day and you only had one payment. And you get that $2,100 in here and no problem. And maybe it's the first of the month. But then, as I said, 10 days later or several days later, you'll see all of a sudden a disbursement of $2,100. You have nothing to match it to. And you can't match it because you have this single payment here of $2,100, which everything looks great. Looks completely paid. It's released. And now what do you do? So that's the challenge. So what we do here is, with Acumatica, we can't do a void on this. We can do a void with a check or cash. We can do a void with a credit card. If it's a credit card or a credit card ACH type transaction, meaning it's got an online processor to it, then the challenge is, the problem is when we do a void, it goes out and it tries to communicate with the bank processor, the merchant processor, and it tries to cancel that transaction or reverse it. And that you can't do with ACH. ACH networks, they don't support it. To the best of my knowledge, I've had this conversation with several processors. It's not supported to be able to do a void. Once you initiate it, it's done. So then what do? We can't void this, yet we have an invoice. We need to open up that invoice balance so we can send out a proper statement to the customer. Even if we had the money in our hands, we need the invoice balance open so that we can apply it accordingly. So what do? Well, what we need to do to get started on this is click this reverse application. So by reversing the application, we do a couple of things here. Hit the button, and you don't see anything pop up down here, but you do see a minus $2,100 here under Applied to Documents. And as I mentioned before, this is your future tense, anything that's going to happen before we release it. And that's what you see here. You see the same invoice number, but a minus 2,100. And of course, you can make changes to here if you're trying to apply. I'm sorry, I'll take that back. You can't make changes because we're reversing the entire application. You can only make changes to the amount paid if you're adding a new one. So scratch that. But nonetheless, if I release this, this goes away. It essentially jumps over to application history, and I see 2,100, the original amount paid, and then a minus, a reverse. So what do we do here? Well, we did two things. We took this invoice and we opened up the balance for it, which means we put it on the accounts receivable, which means it'll show up on statements now going forward. So that's good. That's one thing. It also means that we can take a payment on it, which we couldn't a minute ago. But the other thing we did is we opened up this payment. The payment is no longer closed. The payment is open, and it's open because it's got a balance. So how do we clear that balance? So what we need to do here in this case is we need to create a credit memo and then apply that against this, right? So because if we go here and we look, you have the ability to apply this document to a credit memo. And because we have a balance, we should be good there. So let's go out of this and get confused in this. And we'll go to New. And we'll pick the customer, which was right corner. Yeah, that's right. Change it to credit memo. And we'll put a line in here. Now, we could copy and paste the existing invoice, but what we're trying to do is wash this out. I got this wrong. Okay, so hold on. I'm going to reverse this thinking. There's nothing in my ear right here. We need to do a different type of payment. Sorry, I got confused. We can't do a credit memo because that's the opposite. We need to do a payment refund, customer refund. So we'll go over here. We'll put a transaction payment reference in here. We'll pick up right. We'll put in $2,100. And now we have the ability to apply this to a payment, right? So if we scroll over, we put $2,100 in this, and we're getting an error message. Oh, we need to pick the payment. Sorry. We'll pick this payment of $2,100 and now we'll release it. So now what we've done is we've applied this payment and we've balanced out those two documents. If we go back to the payment and we refresh, you can now see there's no balance. If we go to application history, you see the original invoice applied, you see the reverse, and you now see the customer refund. So that's how we were able to work our way out of this. Our application date is 4/21. Of course, that's going to show up in the books. If we open up our batch, you can see we've reversed this out in order to make that payment refund because we don't have the money. We never got the money. Or we got the money, sorry, and we took the money came out again several days later. But this has also done something else. Now this refund will show up when we're doing our banking. So again, if you're using process banking, like you're going to import your bank transactions, they'll show up here under process banking where you can match them up to payments. So you'll highlight over here, you'll see it over there. The minute you get this disbursement and it's the odd transaction out, you can now apply it to a refund, customer refund, which you couldn't do before. So that's that. And let me open up my window here and see if there's any questions. Happy to take questions. Let me see if I can open that up. Okay. All right, I have my window open. Again, we're still a little new at doing these live broadcasts, so sorry about the sound issue earlier. The other thing, we're putting out another video. You may have seen some of our fast track series. We're trying to put that out there so that customers who are new or considering Acumatica know that there's a simple way to just get live and get transactions. Not a complex way, but to get that going. So we've done that. Another video that's coming out is the ability to handle duplicate records and merge them. So that's coming out as well in the near term. And we have some other stuff here too. Open that up. We have several hundred videos that we have on our wish list that we're trying to get to. We've achieved about almost 220 so far. So the library is building, but we're trying to refine it and get you the best content, the most usable content that's out there. So that's a good question. So normally those bank costs are a separate transaction. Normally they're not just buried into the existing transaction. So the question is what if the repayment involves a bank cost, like insufficient funds or something like that? So typically that's a separate transaction. So what happens is when you're doing your reconciliation, so we'll go in and we'll do a brand new one. And we'll pick our company checking account. So you have all these transactions. This is as of, this is quite a bit of time. This is about 13, 14 months. But nonetheless, typically we would do this for the month. We put our statement ending balance that we downloaded from the bank for the period that we're running it. But what you want to do here is, and there's a couple of different ways, but you want to create an adjustment. And you want to pick an entry type. In this case, it's bank fee. And maybe it's a $25 fee. You can give it an explanation here. Now, if you want to use a different offset account, you can do that. You can also create additional entry types so that that's done for you. And you can give it some sort of reference. If the bank has given you a reference, you can put that in there. Otherwise, you could put today's date or something like that. Now, notice this is actually somewhat recent, maybe in the last year or two. Acumatica added the ability to release this on the fly. So you could take this off hold and actually check the release button and do it right there. But that's going to be how you're going to match it. Now, the other option is you could simply, create a bank transaction here. So you can go in and do a new cash entry for the time period. So I can pick checking. And I can, again, take a bank fee here. And I can come over here. I don't have to be too sophisticated with the quantity and all that stuff. But maybe it's a $25 fee. And I can release this. Now, this has today's date in it. So if I go over here and I refresh it, assuming I could find it, I think I have a odd filter here. Let me sort by descending. And there's your $25. So you can mark it off. So that's what you can do there. Some of the other things that we're coming out with, new to 2022, there are some accounts payable recognition. If you use AP recognition, there's some improvements there. The ability, we're showing process bank transactions. Acumatica has added the ability to do a mass processing here, which is great. Of course, add the ability to match to multiple payments is nice, as well as multiple invoices. So that's a new thing, not this last version, but the version before. We're trying to do a demo on GL anomaly detection. So there's a screen here under, if we click show all, there's the ability to analyze accounting transactions. We haven't quite gotten the demo done because we're looking for a license. It requires a special license. But there's the ability to train, essentially go through and look at your GL transactions and ultimately have it go out to an AI engine that could see when there's any kind of anomalies. For example, maybe your electricity all of a sudden peaked for some reason, or maybe your marketing expense peaked or something changed. The system can go through and give you bits and pieces and analyze whether or not something isn't quite right, and you can make adjustments. So that's what we're doing there with regards to GL anomalies. We're doing that. We're trying to do a demo on some e-commerce stuff, some cool new e-commerce things that are out there. See, there's another question here. Yeah, so the question is, what if the amount of the money is you lost $20 on the single transaction? I think that's the question that's being asked. And it's a single line. So essentially, I haven't seen this myself, but essentially this disbursement, this $2,100 is already short. So you have nothing to match it to. So in that case, what you can do is you could just check off the 2 and match them. There's no way to really, if your system has, if your payment, if your disbursement or your refund was modified by a certain amount, or you didn't collect that total amount and it's short by a certain amount, you're only going to get one line. The reality is you only get one line per payment or per refund. So what you need to do is add that cash entry here, and then you simply check off both, and that's how you'll balance it. So in this case, it's $21.25. So the bank took back the $2,100, but they also nicked us for $25. My experience is they always show a separate transaction for that. But if your experience is not, you might consider a different bank, which is kind of a joke. But I've seen situations where it'll end up being very messy, particularly if that happens all the time. But nonetheless, you have to create a separate transaction. There's no way around it. Because every payment is a separate entry in your bank rec. Let's see. So yeah, we talked about merging duplicates. We have a video coming out on the new manufacturing visibility, prepayment with charges. There's some miscellaneous financial stuff. So we're trying to get to as much as we can. We want to finish the financial fast track. Again, financial fast track is just for a few sets for very limited amount of customers out there. Most customers use a conventional implementation to implement the ERP software in their business. Financial fast track is specifically, it's a firestorm and you're just trying to get the software live, or you're okay with the bare basics and just doing things completely out of the box. So, okay, well, that's it. I'm going to stop. Certainly the first 15 minutes were extremely fun since you couldn't hear anything. If there's a way to edit it, I'll try to edit the muted part. But we're going to try and keep doing this as often as we can. And we'll come up with different topics. And if we can get this into a regular basis, it'll start to cascade into more of a following. People will know what time, what channel to tune into. Certainly, it'll be easier to find if it's on a regular basis. So thanks again for watching, and really appreciate all your support. Bye-bye now.